Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast with me, Errol Lawson. If this is your first time here, we want to welcome you. If you're an organizational leader or manager in church-based ministry, in business, in academia, then you're definitely in the right place. In addition to hosting the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast, I also offer one-to-one and group coaching for leaders and leadership teams that want to improve their effectiveness and become more productive and increase their performance. Inspirational, entertaining, and engaging keynote talks that will help shift the mindset of your leaders and bring about the organizational culture that you really desire. For more information or to book a free, no obligation consultation to see whether we're the right fit for each other, simply drop me an email today at errol@errollawson.com, and I'd love to have a chat with you. Thank you for listening. Enjoy today's show. Hello and welcome to the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast with me, Errol Lawson. It's the place where Christian leaders and entrepreneurs get those light bulb moments that help them to enlarge their life and their business. My special guest today is Deb Ingino. Deb is the CEO of Strength Leader Development, a highly sought after executive mentor, consultant, and speaker worldwide. Deb is well versed in business operations and in the importance of asking key questions most business leaders won't ask themselves. Deb, thank you for joining me today.
Errol, I'm thrilled to pieces. Thank you.
It's great to have you today, man. We're so blessed to have you. I know there's so much more I could say about you, Deb, but before we start, please take a moment to fill in any gaps in your bio right there and give us a glimpse into what you're up to in the world right now.
Well, there's really nothing to fill in on the bio. I mean, I find bios are nothing more than our history, right? And I'm much more excited about the future. So I love talking about some of the projects that I'm working on. One of the things I've been blessed to do was to take my experience and my strengths, my God-given strengths, and been able to serve business leaders across the globe to help them to come into the fullness of their own potential by leveraging their strengths. That's my mission.
Awesome. And then where did it all begin for you? Can you tell us a story about how you got into what it is you're doing right now?
Yeah, I sure can. I'll give you the abbreviated version. So I am born and raised in the Bronx in New York City, the oldest of 7 kids. How that's important is this. I came from very humble beginnings. We had 7 children in a 2-bedroom apartment in the Bronx. And one of the things that was really instilled in me in a very early age was that there's got to be more to life. And I knew I needed to get out and experience life to see that. And decades later, after being in a corporate career, I had the good fortune to work for a very large company here in New York and travel all around the world and create startup teams for them in 17 different countries. Now, here is the key. I don't speak all of those languages, so I needed a way to very quickly discern someone's real strengths so that we could make sure that if we hired them, if they were a good values match for our organization back then, that we could put them in the right spot in the company. And that's how my drive to really help to identify what people's strengths are began.
And was there like a significant kind of epiphany or revelation or light bulb moment, if you like, in that journey? Maybe you were heading in one direction down one pathway and something happened and caused you to change direction altogether?
Oh, yeah, it's actually an almost humorous story. When I graduated from high school, I decided I shouldn't say I decided. It was clear to me growing up that the value and the emphasis was not put on going to university. The emphasis was put on making money. So I went out right after high school and started working 2 full-time jobs. And while I was working those 2 full-time jobs, my boyfriend, now husband of 38 years, told me that I should consider going to university. And when I went to the university, it was night school, my very first class. It was a business class. And for the first 45 minutes of that class, that professor was talking in theory what business was like. And it was very different than what my experience had been over just 2 years in business as an employee. So at the break, after 45 minutes, I asked him what his business experience was. And he told me that he had been in academia all his life. And I said, oh boy, okay, well, can you tell me how much money you make? And you have to understand, Errol, I came from lack financially, so making money was an important driver early on in my life. Certainly I have evolved from there since then. But I asked him how much money he made. He was highly insulted, and he asked me to leave his class, and I did. And I never went back to school after those 45 minutes. So for me, not having a degree made me identify and lean very heavily on my own strengths very early on. And that focus, that and coupled with having great influencers in my life that I learned through, helped me to maximize what I already had so that I could add value to the people and projects that would come into my life.
It's great. It's great. And, there's so much in that story just about being authentic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people want someone who's going to be speaking into their life, who's been there, has a level of just a credibility and experience as well. So
Yes.
important. What's been your biggest challenge in your leadership journey so far? Can you tell us that story?
Oh, boy. I would say my biggest challenge was coming from, I was in corporate life for about 30 years. 23 of those years was for that company where I flew all around the world and did startups. And I had perfected a competency. I was the vice president of global brand operations. So I had perfected, a certain degree of competency and had high expectations of myself. When I resigned from that company to start my own business, I really didn't consider that when leading your own company, you needed, especially in the early days, to be everything. You were the webmaster, you were the admin, you were, right? You were playing roles that I did not have the strengths to play. And thankfully, because I do such great work in the strengths world, I recognized very easily that I needed to outsource my weaknesses pretty quickly if I wanted this business to be successful. And thankfully, I found some wonderful people to help support my launch. And now, going on 5 years, my business as well.
Awesome. And at this stage now in your leadership journey, in your business journey, how do you now define success?
Boy, success for me. We have a mutual friend in John Maxwell, right? And success for me is all about significance. You can have successful moments, successful milestones, and those are nice. But significance, when you can help take something you've been given, a gift that you've been given, and be able to share that with another human being, and to watch them implement something that was shared through you to them and have them make a transformational change, that is the most powerful reward on earth.
Amen. Awesome. And John himself said that the secrets to success are hidden in our daily agenda or our daily routine. Typically speaking, what does the first 90 minutes of your day look like?
Oh, good boy. That's the first 90 minutes. It's the first 9 minutes sometimes is where it's made or broken, For me, it really starts out the day with prayer because I'm a woman of faith. So it's about recentering myself back to my Creator and making sure that I commit the day back to God. That's where it starts. The next thing that's really important is, and this is something I was such a resistor of early on in my corporate career, and thankfully I learned that lesson decades ago, was to have a written list each day. Not of just the activities that you had to do, because many of us have a calendar or diary where we have our schedule and we follow it, but most importantly, a list of what do you want to accomplish that day? Who can you add value to that day? Who have you not been in touch with recently that would be nice to reach out? And at the end of the day, claim it in the beginning of the day. What do you want to see happen? How do you want to fulfill your purpose that day?
That's great.
Are you seriously fired up about growing as a leader in business or church-based ministry? Are you feeling somewhat frustrated about not having realized your full potential in what you've been called to do? Could you do with someone to help you get some extra clarity or to be a sounding board for your plans and ideas? Great athletes have coaches, so do great leaders. The right leadership coach for you will result in an increased sense of clarity, direction, and purpose, dramatically increasing the results you achieve. If you're ready to step up, contact Errol to book a free, no-obligation introductory coaching session and see whether Errol is the right coach for you. Errol takes the lessons learned from his own leadership journey and from his extensive research to help leaders and entrepreneurs to step into their biggest challenges and rise to their next level. Email admin@errollawson.com right now to schedule your call.
You're a faith-based leader. How do you kind of combine your faith with your business exploits? How do the two work together daily on a sort of day-to-day basis?
Well, it's interesting. While I'm a faith-based person, my client demographic is not necessarily faith-based, or certainly of different faiths. I target working with corporate businesses that are primarily between 50 million and 500 million a year in revenue and turnover, U.S. dollars, and in many cases, they don't have a faith component to their business. But that doesn't stop me from serving them, because the things that I'm serving them in, strengths and leadership, I could use the language of a faith-based community, and I could very easily use the language of a secular community. And the real core of it, Errol, something you and I know for sure, is that everything we've learned, what does Solomon say? There's nothing new under the sun, right? It's all something that comes from another source to us that we merely share with the world.
That's great. And are there any other key habits that have contributed towards your success?
Boy, key habits for me, I guess there's a couple things. The first would be to constantly be in growth mode, development mode. And I don't just mean about my business. My business, thankfully that's been very successful, and I love the fact that it continues to grow. But most importantly for me as a person, that I need to grow myself.
I heard you say be on the grow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That piece is so important, because if we're not growing, we're dying. So, and I'm not ready yet for that. So being on the grow is important. The next thing I think that's really been important for me too is to surround myself with like-minded, like-valued individuals that maybe aren't the same as I am, but can help me to grow and can help challenge me and provide me with different perspectives.
Awesome. And as a leader, what's your biggest weakness?
Well, that's easy. I am not naturally organized or neat. You can ask my husband. We're the odd couple. He's very neat and structured and organized, and I am the exact opposite. I am messy and disorganized, and thankfully I have a business manager who keeps my business organized and structured, and she makes me look structured even though I'm not naturally.
And what's your biggest strength?
Oh, my biggest strength clearly is my ability to be able to help people to come into the fullness of their own potential by helping them to tap into their natural God-given strengths.
Amen. And you know what? At the beginning of your leadership journey, what, if anything, was holding you back from going into leadership?
It definitely, I would say in the early days, back in my corporate career, I aspired to be a leader. I really, really in my heart wanted to be a leader. But early on, I felt that my lack of a degree, a college degree, a university degree, would hold me back. And I remember pretty clearly that there was a moment on the job where I realized that I was surrounded by people, some of which who had amazing degrees, terrific credentials, but they were no smarter than I was. And in fact, some of them weren't nearly as bright as I was. So I decided that I have evidence all around me that that was not a qualifier, and I needed to break through that negative thinking, and I did.
Awesome. And on your journey so far, if you could tell me three of your most significant mentors.
Wow, only three? That limits it quite a bit, because I have to say there have been hundreds of people in my life that really have been a mentor, some for a season, some for a lifetime. First and foremost, here on earth, I would say John Maxwell has been a mentor of mine from afar first, back in the mid-'80s when I first learned about John. And I was reading his books back then and listening to cassette tapes and when we had those. and it was that piece learning through John, because he's a very practical or pragmatic teacher. And I learned very well through that style. So John early on was a mentor from afar, and now luckily a mentor a bit closer up. Dan Miller, who you've actually had on your podcast. Dan is a mentor of mine still today. In fact, when I was thinking about leaving my corporate career, I found Dan and I went to Dan for coaching, and that's how he and I became friends. And the third person I would have to say has really been my husband. And the reason I say my husband is, my husband Greg is wired very differently than I am. He's a business leader in his own right. And his quiet strength and quiet style of leadership is one that I learn from each day. And it helps me to see and to be reminded that I can learn how to be more of a quiet strength rather than a bombastic or very loud strength in a room.
Awesome. And so John and Dan is another one?
And my husband, Greg.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to just dig a little bit deeper into those, right? And ask you, let's do with John and with Dan. What's the best piece of advice they've both given you?
Wow. Gosh, with John, it definitely has been about being intentional. I'm a person who's wired for action. And John, I remember being at a dinner table with John, and John was talking years before he wrote his book, Intentional Living. He must have been working on it at that point. And he was talking about how just taking action is something that could be looked at as a bit amateurish. That a real leader is someone who takes intentional action towards a specific result or towards a specific purpose. And that dialogue at that dinner table for me was a revelation, because I was someone who was very wired to have a lot of activity and a lot of action. And I really had to stop and check in with myself about how much of my action was really intentional. And then with Dan continues to provide me with great advice. And there was something let me see if I could pull it up on my iPhone here. Dan and I talked about there are three things that no matter who we are, no matter what we do for a living, there are three key things that every person, every human being really needs to have in their lives. And they are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Now, why those things for me is great advice is that no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm, working with a client or at a family outing, there are three things that every person is looking for: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And being able to stay in touch with those three things throughout my day, am I providing that to the people that I'm coming into contact with? Am I providing a space for them to do that? Am I providing a pathway for them to do that? That is such powerful advice, because that also means that my intention is to serve them first before I'm served.
That's awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I know you're doing some amazing work through strengths finding, and I want to talk a bit about that. And well, what's the one thing that you're most fired up about right now?
Well, there's a lot to be fired up about right now, but I would say, the work that we do at Strength Leader, it's all about helping leaders to be able to lead with their strengths. And the response that we're getting from leaders across the globe has just been phenomenal. In fact, there's an organization, a global organization that I'm working with today to help to support leaders across, I think it's more than 100 countries and more than 12,000 leaders in the world. And I love being able to teach and mentor this team because I know that the footprint that they will make in this world is just outstanding.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So where are you going to be doing that from, and what are you going to be doing with them, and how did that come about? I'm intrigued.
Well, technology today makes it easy because instead of having to be in more than 100 countries, I can actually do it just like you and I are doing, actually through video, right? So being able to train through video. How I got this was really through just association. That's why surrounding ourselves with like-valued, like-minded, growth-oriented people has been such a blessing in my life and in my business. And being open to serve people first, just because it's the right thing to do, never fails to serve me in some way, shape, or form. Even though we don't look for it, it's like you just can't outgive God.
Amen. Amen to that. And so, do you want to say some more about the work you're doing with just in terms of helping to discover their strengths? And
A lot of the work that I do, it really is mentoring and coaching leaders. So there's some training involved, some teaching involved, but really being able to work with them. I provide them with, most business leaders, I provide them with our strengths assessment, which is an online assessment. This allows them to very clearly see their strengths. Where do they have the most influence? Right? How do they influence results? Are they someone who influences results best at speaking and influencing a room? Are they someone who influences results through processing and understanding detail at a very high level? Or are they someone who influences results by being relatable to other people and being supportive of their work? Or someone who influences results by being creative and being an energy that comes into a room or into a project for other people? So that work for me, Errol, I would do that for free because it is a gift to be able to help people to see. All I merely do is hold up the mirror after they have that online assessment and help them to see how they can lean more into their own strengths and have much more success.
And is there a transformation that they will get at the end of it? What are they coming into it for, so to speak?
Yeah. So people come into it for different reasons. In some cases, it's because they want a career change, right? In many cases, the work that I do today, it's because business leaders have either acquired a new team of people, maybe there was a merger or an acquisition in the company, or it's someone who's been promoted up through the ranks and they're a little concerned about whether or not they can handle it. Do I have the strengths to lead this group? How would I be best served to lead this group? And in my work with helping that leader, and then by extension, understanding the strengths and gifts and talents of their team, I can help them to become a high performance collaborative team so that they can do their best work together.
That's great. That's great. Guys, you got to go and check out Deb's website. Check out Deb's resources. They were almost done now, but is there a book or a resource you'd recommend to a leader or entrepreneur that's listening right now?
Yeah, you know what? With your permission, Errol, I would love to be able to provide your listeners with a PDF. I will outline in that PDF. They could just go to strengthleader.com/rising. So strengthleader.com/rising, and they'll be able to get access immediately to a PDF. I will outline the keys for leaders to be able to lead with your own strengths. So they can just go there, download it immediately. And I think it's going to be an eye-opening experience for them and will empower them to do their very best.
Brilliant. Wow. Deb, we definitely want to be following you and staying in touch with you. Can you direct us to your resources? Are you on social media? Your social media handles?
Absolutely. Just go to any of the social media handles. Go to Deb Ingino, Ingino.
Awesome. Wow. Guys, I know you've been blessed. I've been blessed today. Go and check out Deb's material. Go and check out the website. Go and get that free ebook. Go and grab that resource and be inspired and share this with your friends, your loved ones, your colleagues who are out there. Deb, is there anything else you want to let us know about you're working on right now?
No, Errol, I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to share a little bit this morning. It has been a blessing for me to be able to connect with you, and I am thrilled to pieces at the work that you're doing for this generation.
Awesome. Thank you, Deb. God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you again for joining us today on the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast. I pray you've been inspired, you've been lifted, you've been encouraged to take your personal leadership to the next level. We really encourage you guys to just take action, make it happen, do something, start somewhere, go out and change the world in some way, big or small. Guys, if you've enjoyed the podcast today, please share with your friends, share with your loved ones, your colleagues, someone out there you think might benefit from hearing this great content. And if you want some more questions answering, you got a question, email me, Errol@errollawson.com. Or if you want a free 30 to 45 minute coaching session with myself around a leadership challenge or issue you're working on in your business, your church, or in your organization, please feel free to email me right away. We'll get you booked in. It's Errol@errollawson.com. Thank you again for listening. Go to our iTunes page, check it out, check out the previous episodes. Give us a nice review, that would be awesome. Really appreciate if you could do that for us. We really appreciate you just for being here and listening. Thank you so much. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Rising Generation.